So welcome to all of you to this Raj Yoga in a Nutshell course. This is an overview of the Brahma Kumaris philosophies, and it's something I've been running for quite some years now. And I found it useful to do over the years because quite often people don't have so much time to attend the full Raj Yoga course. And what happens is that because that is a bigger commitment, maybe of 7 hours, people can feel that, do I want to give this 7 hours? So what this course does in 1 hour is provide a bit of a summary and hopefully convey the main concepts of the Raj Yoga course. And then the idea is that you could then do the Raj Yoga course afterwards, but at least you know what is to come in the Raj Yoga course. So that then helps the foundation and helps people make some choices. I find it interesting to do because it just makes me as well think about the core principles of Raj Yoga and what we really need to know. And for those of you that are teaching Raj Yoga, again, it might give you another idea of something that you could do also. I began attending the Brahma Kumaris Center just as a child with my mother in 1982. And she was attending the center started by one of the elders of the Brahma Kumaris, Dedi Janki, in London. And so we were students of that class for many years. And I currently still, Raj Yoga is like a lifelong education, a spiritual education. So I'm a student of this Brahma Kumaris philosophy, and every day I commit my time, particularly in the morning, to the practice of meditation. And I have a lifelong commitment to my own self-improvement. And that is what Raj Yoga is about. So I would like to begin by asking you to reflect on some questions. First question, who was I before I was born? Maybe you've thought about that. Now, of course, this question is different in every culture because some cultures, it's a little bit normal to think about concepts such as reincarnation. Others, not so. However, from a spiritual perspective, there does tend to always be some thought and philosophy of being someone before I was born. And then if you are not from a spiritual background, you might have another idea as well about that answer. So who was I before I was born? And then the second question, where was I before I was born? So if I was someone before I was born, where was I before I was born? And then the third question, what is my relationship with the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul? What is my relationship with the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul? So let's move on. These are some reflection questions. I'm sure you've got some ideas in your mind. And I'd like you to carry on reflecting as you hear some of the thoughts from the Brahma Kumaris' perspective. So a big topic of spirituality and really of life is the topic of identity. Who am I? Now, if we're introducing ourselves, we are going to introduce ourselves in a variety of ways. If you think about it, your identity has changed through your life. If you were asked to introduce yourself when you were elementary school, your answer would be very different to the answer you will give now. So identity is something which is constructed through life. And that identity is also then selected and presented in certain ways. So if we think about it, our identity has been constructed by ourselves and also by those around us. And so through life, we have to ask ourselves that question, well, who am I? Now, that identity, it can be shaped by multiple factors, can't it? It can be shaped by my family identity, can be shaped by my country and place. It can be shaped by religion. It can be shaped by the work that I do, the education that I've had, the relationships that I have, the wealth, the possessions, the different roles and positions. So you can see that all of those are things which I identify with. And these are all social constructs, aren't they? Most of those things are things which I have acquired. They are not things necessarily that I knew when I was a baby, when I was innocent of all of these awarenesses. But over the years, we construct our sense of self. So what happens is we have our core self, and that core self is really the self before the social construction, the essence of life. And then I develop a public self, and I also have my own inner world, my own personal thoughts and feelings. Sometimes we can present something about ourselves externally, but internally we have different feelings actually. So you can see that this concept of identity is complex. Now, on this diagram, I haven't really included the physical body. But when we're talking about who am I, we're talking about a particular social construct, but also we're talking about a physical body and that construct. All the cells in our body, they rejuvenate. They're always dying and recreating. That's the way that cells work. So every few years, we basically have a new body. And certainly as the years go by, our body is changing. So you can't really say you got the same body like when you were a child. We might think that way. We might think, well, this is the same body. But actually, all the cells that were in your body when you were a child, they all died. And they were replaced by new cells. And so you haven't really got that same body anymore. And of course, as we age, we know that different parts of our body don't work so well. And so we can definitely see that that physical self is changing. Then you think about that social self. And that changes as well, doesn't it? Think when you were a teenager. That's when we usually become much more aware of our social self. And teenagers are particularly worried about what others are thinking about them. So really, you would say our ego develops more strongly from that age onwards. And I mean, it develops before that too, but we become really clever in judging that what is it that this person wants to see of me? What is it that that situation wants to see of me? And we can do it even very subtly, this sort of analysis. So for example, you might live with someone and in front of them, you're presenting a certain self. But then you meet someone else for the first time and you won't present the same self. You will present another image. And if it's someone new, you could tell them anything. They don't even know you. So you could just almost reinvent yourself in front of someone. And then if you meet a school friend, they know you for so many years. So they already sort of know you in a different way. And so you're not going to present yourself in the same way as you were to a stranger, to that person. So you can see how that social self, the ego, is always changing. It's never still, never stable. And we develop our self-esteem based on that social self and based on the physical body, the physical self. And as long as both of them are meeting a criteria for success, we will feel good about ourselves. We will say, well, I've got self-esteem. And that source of self-esteem could be my work and my success in my job. It could be judged by the wealth I earn and the car that I buy and the house and that I live in, and so on. So you can see how that type of self-esteem is more of an ego management, where we are analyzing what is the criteria for success and then constructing ourselves accordingly. And we begin that process in earnest since we're a teenager, and then we do it the whole of our life, really. And then maybe as we get older, we sort of relax a little bit more, and you sometimes hear from more experienced people that they say, well, I used to chase these things and I used to try and be this for other people, but now I'm older, I'm wiser. Actually, I'm not doing it so much. But generally through life, we are wanting to fit in a lot of the time. And because we want to fit in somewhere, we want to belong somewhere, we're always analyzing the criteria for success in that particular group. That group could be a family, that group could be a social group, that group could be a religious group, and so on. So we will analyze what will make me successful within the criteria of that group. Now, if that physical self is changing all the time and that social self is changing all the time, the question arises, is there any part of me that doesn't change? And the Brahma Kumaris' perspective is that there is part of us that doesn't change. And that's what we call the core self, or the soul. And this soul is the part that really is determining the inner world. It's like the driver of the vehicle. And that this soul sits inside of the brain. And the soul is in essence silence, love, power. And this silence, this love, and this power then drives all the other personality of the soul, of the self. So that if you think about all of the qualities that you have or another person has, someone might be kind and generous. So behind that is love, right? Someone might be very calm and positive, and maybe behind that is silence or peace. Someone might be very brave and courageous. So behind that is power, right? So if you trace back all of the qualities, you can see that it probably comes back down to that peace, that love, and that power. And that peace, love, and power is what we call the soul. And that's the core. One of the questions I asked you at the beginning is, who was I before I was born? And there is another question that goes with that one, which is, who will you be after you die? And as I was explaining, your physical body is changing all the time anyway. So there's an argument that you've died many times from your body because all the cells have replaced themselves. I think it's every 12 years, the entire body, or 7 years, something like that. Every number of years, the whole body replaces itself. And so what you have is that the body is always changing. And then one day, the body that's made out of nature will return back to nature, right? So these elements of the body are the elements of the environment, aren't they? So they are definitely not going to be there in this form of this body for very long. It's just for a short space of time. They will exist as cells in nature. So this body just returns back. There's the famous lines, isn't there, from Christian funerals: dust to dust, ashes to ashes. The body returns back, doesn't it, to those elements. Water goes back to water, soil, earth goes back to earth, like that. So that physical self is definitely not there before. Well, I mean, it's before I was conceived, it's not there. And it's not there after I die. What about the social self? Well, that's also constantly changing. The social self that I have now didn't even exist 10 years ago. And maybe in another 10 years, I'm someone else, really, socially. Who knows, right? And that's definitely a construct, because sometimes I can think that I'm someone, and actually other people perceive me differently anyway. So even that social self is really just perceptions, because I can present myself in a certain way, but actually other people are judging me in a different way. So that self is really quite a fluid self anyway. It's certainly not there all the time. It's always changing. What about when I get older and maybe I have to retire, so then I'm not able to do many of the things I'm doing now? Maybe I have to deal with ill health, and then I can't be those roles that I was, or I can't achieve the things I was achieving before. So I think we can also say that the social self is not going to be there after I die. It's also temporary. So then who am I before I was born? Who am I after I die? And Brahma Kumaris believes in this concept of the eternal soul. And so I am, and I was peace, love, and power. And I was that before I was born. In reality, I was that throughout my life. It's just that I forgot that, and I focused on my external self. And then after this physical self is gone, I am still peace, love, and power. And the soul, when it's in the body, then the brain thinks, right? Once the soul has left that body, the body has died, then even if you see the corpse, the brain is there, the heart is there, the eye, everything is there, but there's no life. So what was thinking? If the brain is still there, the one that was there before, how come this person is not thinking anymore? How come the brain is not controlling the functions of the body anymore? So there must be something else that must be combined with the brain that gave the life as well. And so this is what we say is the soul. The soul is made up of this mind. And so one mind is the brain, but the other mind means the thinking. So the soul has that power to think, that power of the intellect to understand, and also the power of the impressions, the sanskars that fill inside of the soul. And so the soul is also accumulating. So the soul has that love, that peace, that power, but it also has this level of the mind, the intellect, and the sanskars, where the soul in each life is accumulating experiences. Originally, the soul is just pure and silent. But when the soul is in a body down here, then the soul is actually accumulating experiences. And because of that, we've lost touch with that original peace, love, and power that's inside. And instead, we're lost in so many thoughts and so many feelings. The second question that I asked you at the beginning, where was I before I was born? So in Brahma Kumaris philosophy, we look at the universe being made up of three worlds. We have this world, this universe of the material elements of nature. Then above that, we have a world of angels. And then above that, we have the world of nirvana, of silence, the world of the highest heaven where all souls originally live. And so the Brahma Kumaris perspective is that the soul starts off as incorporeal, which means without a body, and you naturally exist without a body. You are just silence, love, and power. And all souls that are in a body down here now, they originally started off in that land of nirvana. My third question to you at the beginning was, what is your relationship with the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul? And you can see in this picture too, that in Brahma Kumaris philosophy, our perception of God is that he is also a soul. He is also silence, love, and power. But he is the ultimate source of all of these. He is the ocean of silence, the ocean of love, the ocean of power. And we refer to that Supreme as Shiv. When you look at some of the older Indian scriptures like the Shiv Purana, it refers to Shiv, this incorporeal Shiv. Other names are Rudra or even Ram. Originally, Ram was a name for Shiva. And so many of you may be familiar with that Shiva Shankar type of image. But in Brahma Kumaris, we consider the incorporeal Shiva. So there's one Shiva, which is the Shankar Shiva, and this other Shiva is the incorporeal Shiva. And it's that incorporeal Shiva, the one who never has a body down here of his own. That one is the one who we consider to be God, Allah, the highest, Prabhu, Ishwar. And that incorporeal Shiva is worshipped in India in that form of the Shivalingam. And you'll often see even that Shankar Shiva meditating in front of that Shivalingam. So that Shivalingam is a very ancient symbol. Now, one of the major differences between the Supreme Soul, Shiva, and us human souls is that Shiva doesn't take rebirth down here. In Brahma Kumaris philosophy, we believe time to be cyclic and made up of 4 Mahayugas, which are 4 great ages. And so when the soul leaves nirvana, it comes down into this world, and this world is passing through time in different ages. The original time period is called Satyuga, the golden age. And that has been remembered as heaven, the Garden of Eden. And then golden age becomes silver age, Treta Yuga. Treta Yuga becomes Dwapar Yuga, the copper age. Copper age becomes Kali Yuga, which is the iron age. And the age we've been living through these past many centuries has been this Kali Yuga. So the Brahma Kumaris perspective is that now we are reaching the end of Kali Yuga. So we are coming back towards the beginning again of the cycle, which is Satyuga, the golden age. So we are now in a confluence, a meeting of 2 cycles. And so after Kali Yuga, the word Kalesh, that means disturbance, hassle, conflict, problems. And so we are in an age where you cannot avoid that. No matter what you do, something will always come to cause obstacles in your life and in the progress of humanity. But it's a message of hope that this cycle is eternal. And so time doesn't just end when Kali Yuga ends, because when great ages end, there's often a turbulent period. So we're in a turbulent period at the moment because Kali Yuga is ending, and we're going to shift back into Satyuga again. And every soul has their own role. It's like a big drama, like a big play. And so we come down from nirvana at different times, and we play our roles, and we take rebirth here. So who you currently are in terms of your personality is actually shaped not just by your experiences and identities in this life, but also subconsciously you are carrying memories and impressions from many lives. And Shiva, he has this connection with these 3 great deities, the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar. And these are symbols of these 3 great powers. So at confluence age, at this confluence of the cycles between Kali Yuga and Satyuga, these three great powers of Shiva are in action: creation, sustenance, and also distraction. And so this is that time when Shiva's powers are beginning to create the foundations for the golden age, and also his powers are ending the iron age. And then he is also equipping souls to be able to sustain the golden age. This journey of souls can be represented in the form of a staircase. So imagining that a soul incarnates from nirvana at the start of the golden age, so right at the beginning of this cycle, then that soul would continue to take rebirth until the end of the cycle, passing through all four Mahayugas. So as the soul continues to take rebirth, the energy of the soul continues to deplete. Impressions are accumulated into the soul, so the soul is also changing. And of course, the environment is changing because the ages are changing. And so, what you have is a journey that the soul goes on from its highest self down to its lowest self. So at this point, we souls have accumulated a lot of impurities because we've taken many rebirths, and we've lost that original cleanliness and purity that we had when we were in nirvana. We've reached the bottom of the staircase. The journey of souls is also not done alone. We all have different tribes that we pass through that journey of many centuries. And we've seen throughout history different religions develop one from another. In Satyuga, you've got living deities, living gods. They're remembered: Sri Radha, Krishna, Sita, Ram. And then over the centuries, things are degrading. And actually then we begin worshipping and remembering those gods, creating temples to them. So you can see many older polytheistic religions like Hinduism developing with many gods, religions of Greece, Rome, many other religions. They believe in multiple gods. And then you have many monotheistic religions too. Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and so on. And so souls belong to different religions naturally. Now, souls in their journey might try different religions as they go through their rebirth, but originally everyone belongs to a tribe. And you can see that people don't accept that another religion is right. People always like to feel their tribe is correct. And each of those religions also passes through their own golden, silver, copper, and iron ages. So with many religions, they've lost some of their original purity as well, their original value. And over the centuries, religions, spirituality within religion has degraded. And also within other structures, within society, and also the soul itself passing through different stages. So even if a soul incarnates from nirvana in Kali Yuga, in the Iron Age, originally they would still have their golden age in the Iron Age. So some new souls now, they might be famous actors, actresses, sports people, because when a soul is new from nirvana, it's in a golden stage. And so they would have a attraction here, and they would also have success down here. Souls that are older, they're heavier. They've lost that shine, that sparkle. And so then things are more of a struggle. So this principle of the stages applies to everything. And we're in a very complex world now where so many souls of so many backgrounds and so much diversity is in the world. It's a very complex tree. So what are we trying to do here in the Brahma Kumaris? Well, we're trying to, you saw, if I go back to that picture before, you can see that there's that connection, that link back with Shiva, the incorporeal. So the soul remembers that incorporeal Shiva, and the soul becomes pure. So the layers of impurities that have accumulated for many lives, they are washed away through Shiva's energy. So in Brahma Kumaris, we practice concentrating our mind on Shiva and on learning about him and relating to him. So we are extracting our mind from the ego that we've created down here and going back to our essence as a soul, living in nirvana with Shiva. That's where we started from. And so we're practicing returning back to the essence and withdrawing our mind from the expansion down here. So also by remembering Shiva, we can draw 8 powers, 8 siddhis into ourselves. And these are very practical powers, like the power to tolerate, the power to confront things, the power to withdraw, the power to back up the mind, the power to accommodate and adjust, the power to discern, the power to take decisions, the power to cooperate. And actually there are others too. So in this way, we are learning to once again become powerful souls. And we have been struggling to deal with Kali Yuga because we don't have this connection with Shiva. So then the power must come externally. So internally we feel vulnerable. We know we are vulnerable, and the body is always vulnerable. But we try and compensate by becoming powerful financially, by becoming powerful based on relationships, by becoming powerful based on position. But they always shake as well. So in Raj Yoga, we're learning to become powerful on the inside. So as we draw those powers from Shiva, the soul once again becomes powerful. And as the soul becomes more pure, the original powers inside of the soul, they also become unlocked. And that original silence, that original love, and that original power continues to manifest. You'll remember that that third world that I introduced to you earlier was the angelic world. And angels are remembered in many traditions. And the aim in Brahma Kumaris philosophy is, instead of now taking rebirth down here as human beings, we're aiming to free ourselves of that. And if we can completely purify the soul so that it returns back to the original state that it was when it was in nirvana, then the soul, instead of taking rebirth down here, can go to the angelic region and become an angel. And so souls who become angels, they're then able to help other souls very subtly through the power of thoughts, the power of feelings. So that soul becomes supported in their heart. It's like an inner strength and an inner courage. Sometimes we've got doubts in ourselves, and then suddenly we begin to feel like we've got some sort of inner strength. We don't know where it came from. And that might be a guardian angel helping you. So the soul who's purified itself through remembering Shiva can then transition to becoming an angel. So Brahma Kumaris' philosophy and spirituality is training to become an angel. So I'm going to stop sharing my presentation there. And I'm also going to now stop the recording so that we can have some question and answers.